Boy, oh boy, do I have a fascinating and terrifying story for you here. This is something for real. So let's go ahead and throw this up on screen. This is in Yahoo Finance. Saudi Arabia mulls pricing of China oil sales in yuan. So that's the Chinese currency. They say, Saudi Arabia is in discussions with Beijing about pricing some Saudi oil sales to China in yuan instead of dollars, according to a Wall Street Journal report citing people familiar with the matter. Chatter about this sort of arrangement has been ongoing for several years, but recent events have brought a new urgency to talks, according to the report, which says the Saudis are questioning long-standing U.S. security commitments to the kingdom. Among the issues are what the Saudis believe to be less than enthusiastic support for the war in Yemen. Oh my God. The White House's attempt at an Iran nuclear deal and shock at the American withdrawal from Afghanistan, the report said. So what, they wanted us to stay there forever? China is a buyer of more than 25% of Saudi Arabia's exported oil, according to the story. The news would seemingly be of interest to the Bitcoin and gold markets, but for now, there's little reaction, with the price of Bitcoin staying in the mid-$38,000 area and gold remaining lower by 2.1% for the day at $1,918 per ounce. Okay, so I have one more graphic to throw up there. This was in Disclosed TV. Russia and India explore alternative payment channels and the possibility of using Chinese yuan as reference currency amid sanctions. So this is the thing that I was warning you guys about. It was like a side point in one of my previous segments on the Russia-Ukraine war. So you had this U.S. reaction. The U.S. reaction was, let's just try to implode the Russian economy. Now, there's a number of things wrong with that. You're hurting Russian civilians who had nothing to do with Putin's invasion. In fact, many of them are out there protesting Vladimir Putin in the streets and being incredibly brave, and thousands and thousands and thousands, probably over 10,000 now, but I don't know for sure, of protesters have been arrested. So these are heroes. These are not people who shouldn't be able to go to the bank and take out some money and, go to the local restaurant. They should absolutely be able to do that. So there's been this overreaction. All the McDonald's are pulling out. You can't use Visa or MasterCard. You've almost imploded the economy overnight. But another side effect of that is this. When people look at the United States and understand that the dollar is the world reserve currency, the U.S. has leverage. And, in a sense, the world is beholden to our whims. And when we are willy-nilly about imploding entire economies of other countries, after a while, you're going to have some rumblings of, I don't think these guys are being fair. I think perhaps they're being too punitive. I don't trust them. How do I know they're not going to implode my economy if they don't like something that my government does? And of course, all these governments around the world, they just care about self-preservation and power. And so that's when you get, well, let's have conversations elsewhere. And all right, let's talk to China. Let's see what China's deal is. Is China going to give me some sort of written guarantee that our country is sovereign and they will not weaponize the economy against us? Because then maybe we turn to China and use China's currency. And so now you're starting to see the rumblings of that, and you're starting to see a coalition rise up. And that is a true and genuine threat to the dollar as the world reserve currency, to U.S. currency supremacy. It is absolutely a threat to that. So think about it. We got China. We got Russia. Potentially India would come along. Of course, you got Iran. And then now we're talking about the Gulf states. We're talking about the people who are supposed to be, one of our closest allies. And then look at what they say, too. One of their arguments is, you're not supportive enough with the war in Yemen. The U.S. isn't supportive enough with the war in Yemen. First of all, ain't no war, bitch. It's a genocide. It's a genocide. You're bombing schools and hospitals and open-air markets. You're blockading the country. You brought about famine and starvation. You are just massacring innocent people in Yemen. Ain't no war. Ain't no war. War denotes two sides that are adequately and effectively going back and forth. I mean, to the extent that there's a defensive posture from Yemen, it's barely there at all. The Houthis have nothing in terms of their power compared to the power of Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, backed by the most powerful military in the world. And that's the thing, we've sent endless amounts of weapons to Saudi Arabia. Now, under the Trump administration, they were just like, take the weapons and use it for offensive reasons. We don't care. But under the Biden administration, they lied to the public in the U.S. and said, oh, no, we're not arming them for offensive reasons. We're arming them for defensive reasons now. So we're not going to help them with the offensive stuff. But we'll still give them defensive weapons. That was a total lie. They're using those weapons however they want to use those weapons. Ain't no defensive clause attached to any sort of agreement we have with them. That's just a posture to the U.S. public to say, see, we're more moral people. But apparently, just saying those words triggers MBS, triggers Saudi Arabia, the government, where they think, well, you're not enthusiastically supporting my genocide, so now my fifis are hurt, so now I'm going to try to make sure you don't get enough oil, so oil prices are high, and now I'm going to run to Russia and China and cuddle up to them. And from the perspective of MBS, again, he looks at the world. This was a great point from Trita Parsi. He says, you look at the U.S., you look at Joe Biden, you say he's probably only got 4 years in there. Vladimir Putin's got a decade or more in power. He's an authoritarian leader. Now, the systems are obviously worse if it's some sort of authoritarian dictatorship, but in terms of, from the perspective of another dictator, he wants a long-term relationship with another country. So he thinks that's almost a better investment in a sense, a better relationship with somebody who's going to be there in a longer time. And why would I make a deal with the U.S.? The U.S. goes back on their deals willy-nilly like it's nothing. So why would I continue to go down that path and have that relationship? And so now you're starting to see it, man. You're starting to see the rumblings. China's making moves behind the scene. Now, you also have the Belt and Road Initiative. They're going into all these countries, Africa and in Africa and in other places, and they're like, what if we gave you some material well-being and built out your infrastructure, and then in return, we get to sort of extract your natural resources? It's empire through another tactic, and a more intelligent tactic because there is more genuine material interest and well-being for countries that join in it. So you have them expanding their sphere of influence, even though spheres of influence probably shouldn't exist. It's sort of an imperial notion. They're expanding theirs, and now it looks like they're getting in a position for a currency war. At the very least, it's no longer a unipolar world, it's a multipolar world. And so you'll have, two different systems that clash that are sort of jockeying for supremacy. And it would be China on the rise and the U.S. on the decline. So look, this was another reason why the sanctions couldn't have and shouldn't go overboard. You just can't do it because people aren't there. There's always a reaction. There's always a retaliation. There's always people going to look at that and respond. And so, again, I had no problem at all. I was a big advocate of sanction Putin as much as possible, sanction the military as much as possible, sanction the oligarchs as much as possible. I love the seizing of the yachts and the offshore bank accounts and all that stuff. I think that's wonderful. But the over-the-top collective punishment, which tries to implode the entire economy, of course you're going to have other countries that are like, we probably got to get off the dollar as the world reserve currency because these motherfuckers are just, for any reason whatsoever, even if on paper it doesn't have anything to do with them, they're going to intervene and they're going to destroy your entire country. So they have people like the U.S. has countries scared of retaliation, and so they're looking for other options where they'll get more leeway. Maybe China will let us, if we have some internal conflict or we want to wage a war on our neighbor or whatever, maybe China will let us get away with it. And maybe that's a better reason to be with them. So U.S. dollar supremacy is low-key collapsing right in front of our eyes. And understand we're just in the beginning stages of it. The rumblings are just starting. And the moves are just being made. But they're certainly being made. There's enough reporting here. So you get China, you get Russia, you get India on board. That would be huge. They got India on board. You get the Gulf states. The U.S. is not in a position where it could just throw its weight around and make demands. The U.S. needs to actually think about these things intelligently and strategically. And clearly, I don't think any recent U.S. administrations have done that at all. I really don't. And there are consequences, man. There are consequences. So we'll see what happens, but this is just the beginning. We're looking at a potential currency war. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.